Well, hello, welcome, fellow Rotarians. We're happy to see you today, and we welcome any guests that are joining us. I am Barb Jeffries, President of the Park Cities Rotary Club this year, and this is our 24th meeting of the year. I am coming to you not live, but virtually from Globe Life Field. We are very excited about our speakers today. We are all Rangers fans, and so this is going to be a fun program. Well, with that, I would like to start the meeting. We're going to start off today with an invocation and a pledge, which we always do. It's going to be given today by Cindy Cummings. And then following that, we're going to hear about our Marketplace Advertiser from Kyle Marmillion. Here are two short video clips.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we thank you for all our many blessings. We pray for peace in our country, and we ask for guidance and clarity for our leaders. We ask for special blessings for the doctors and nurses and all who are caring for those impacted by the COVID pandemic. We pray for strength and healing for all who are ill. For those who have lost loved ones, may they feel your hand on their shoulders as they go through this difficult time. We ask that you show us the way as we seek new ways to serve others. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Our marketplace sponsor today is VCleve Clinton. Past President VCleve Clinton is a board-certified civil trial attorney who represents family businesses and maverick risk takers at the full-service law firm of Gray Reed in Dallas. Whether he's serving as lead counsel in one of the growing number of fiduciary litigation claims within family businesses or advising a family in transition, VCleve's focus is always the same: achieve the client's goals either in or out of the courtroom. When a deal or controversy requires a multidisciplinary approach, VCleve assembles a team of Gray Reed lawyers and other professionals with the perfectly matched skill set, whether it's tax, employment, real estate, construction, or regulatory, and then quarterback strategic planning and tactical execution every step of the way. VCleve takes pride in striking the perfect balance between legal strategy and a client's practical goals, all while minimizing family conflict. We thank our marketplace sponsor today, VCleve Clinton.
Thank you, Cindy and Kyle. That was wonderful. And a special thank you to Ian Mudge. That is his rendition of our National Anthem, and we are so pleased to be able to play that. What an incredible talent you have, Ian. Well, I'm going to talk a little, we just have one brief announcement actually, and it's about our upcoming meetings. We have next week, we are going to have Dan Fox. Dan Henry. He's the Fox 4 meteorologist. We will be filming here at Mark's studio, so you can join as you are now on the YouTube link. And then in February, our first meeting of the month is Mike Mata. He is the president of the Dallas Police Association. We're going to switch things up a little bit in the month of February, going to bring our club membership a little closer for Valentine's. We are going to have all 4 of our meetings filmed on on Zoom. So you will be able to see and visit with each other. We'll start our meetings about 20 minutes early for a little social hour, and then kick off the meeting at noon. Our club administrator, Lori, is going to serve as the Zoom facilitator, and she and I will be on the call just like you. So we'll see how that goes, a little trial run in February. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Sarah Ollier. She has brought a new member into our club. Her name is Donette Keene. Donette's going to give her new member speech. We are very proud. We have 10 new members since we started our club year, which is in July, and we're so pleased with that. So Donette is one of our recent new members, and we are going to hear a little bit about Donette. And after that, we'll be back at Globe Life Field with Eric Heitkamp, the program chair of the day, introducing our 2 guest speakers.
My friend Sarah Ollier is the primary reason that I became aware of Rotary when I moved here in 2008. And I noticed right away what a dynamic group this is in the community, especially compared with a Rotary group I've been part of in Farmington, New Mexico. It's a wonderful, close-knit group. It just didn't quite have the reach that Park Cities Rotary does. So I'm really excited to be part of such a dynamic group that is service-oriented and so involved in the community in so many different ways. So I grew up in a very small town, and it is about an hour and a half south of Memphis and an hour and a half north of Jackson, Mississippi. So I grew up in the country on a non-working farm, learned how to drive a tractor at the age of 9, learned how to split wood and all those sorts of things that you do when you're growing up in the country. And from there, I moved to Houston, Texas for about 2 years. I co-managed commercial paper for a large insurance company and became really tired of a large city and all the traffic. So moved to Farmington, New Mexico, and I was with Morgan Stanley for 10 years there. I became associate vice president quickly and developed a wonderful base and was very involved in the community. And I volunteered my time there with the local community college. I used my master's degree in teaching just to educate the community and the surrounding Navajo reservation about investments and money management. And from Farmington, I moved to Calgary, Canada. That was 2004, and lived there for 4 years. And then in 2008, my children and I moved to Dallas, and thoroughly have enjoyed every moment since. So my son is a junior in college, biomedical engineering major, and doing really well, loving it. And he was on the high school football team, the winning back-to-back teams, a really, really exciting time. And so I was able to spend a fair amount of time volunteering with the sports group there, very active with that. My daughter is a senior this year, and she attends online high school through UT Austin. So she lives here with me and is really enjoying her curriculum through UT Austin. Some areas that I really would love to get involved in would be the speaker committee. I've developed a guest lecture series with ABC Bank. I joined the bank about a year ago and saw some opportunities to bring in our community leaders to share their experiences with our retail management group bank-wide. And so I absolutely would love to get involved with that. And also from the tree lighting ceremony and 4th of July parade, I've just enjoyed those so much as a resident, and would love to be involved with both of those any way I can. And another area that I am very passionate about, and it's because my family is very service oriented. My dad was a member of the Gideons for over 40 years. He was involved in prison ministry for about 30 years. And my mother taught school for 36 years and was extremely involved with her students and the community. And we've always had an emphasis on supporting our local first responders. So that is an area that is just a passion of mine, and will love to see more involvement with that. And if there's anything I can do related to that to support them and what they're doing. I volunteered with the University Park Police Department through active shooter training and some other areas, and realized that there is a lot of support that is needed there that may not have been implemented in the past. So I'm just really excited to be part of the group and looking forward to getting to know you and supporting our community. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Park Cities. My name is Eric Heitkamp, and we have one of the most exciting programs of the year with the Texas Rangers. And if you're a guest visiting our club today, we really appreciate you being here. I'd like to start off and introduce our MC for today. He enters his 27th year as the lead voice on the Texas Rangers radio broadcast. It marks his 43rd year broadcasting Rangers baseball, the longest tenure of any announcer in the history of the franchise. He was inducted as the 15th member of the Texas Rangers Baseball Hall of Fame on August 11th, 2012. Our MC was the first primary voice of the Texas Rangers to be honored with the Ford C. Frick Award in 2014, presented annually for excellence in broadcasting by the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York. He is an 8-time selection of the National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Association's Texas Sportscaster of the Year Award, and was twice honored with the Associated Press for Best Play-by-Play in Texas. A few fun facts about our MC today. He is a graduate of Brown University, where he called football and hockey on the college radio station. He is very active in the local music scene here, annually presenting a birthday benefit concert for Focus on Teens, for which he is a member of the board of directors at Dallas's Kessler Theater. He is also the author of 4 books, including his latest work, Limerick, an illustrated book of limericks published in November 2018. A portion of the proceeds from sales of that book go to the Texas Rangers Baseball Foundation. He is very involved in numerous mental health causes, serving as a spokesman for the national campaign to change direction and for Texas State of Mind. He is a longtime animal activist and raised the funds for the construction of the first leash-free dog park in North Texas at Mockingbird Point in Dallas. In November 2020, Nadel, the Texas Rangers Baseball Foundation, the University of North Texas Mayborn School of Journalism, and UNT's Department of Media Arts announced the Eric Nadel Excellence in Sports Broadcasting Scholarship. The $30,000 scholarship will provide 2 students with a passion for sports broadcasting, $15,000 each over 2 academic years. A 1991 inductee in the Texas Baseball Hall of Fame, Nadel and his wife Jeannie reside in Dallas and Durango, Colorado, with their terrier mixed dog Kirby. Please help me welcome Eric Nadel. Eric, thank you for being back at our club.
Thanks a lot.
I really enjoy having you. And you think you might have a limerick for us?
I think we could probably wheel one out. My favorite player who never played for the Rangers is Pat Venditti, the only ambidextrous pitcher in modern baseball history. One of these years you got to get him on our team. But he literally throws left-handed to left-handed batters, right-handed to right-handed batters. And I wrote a limerick about him after he pitched against us with the Dodgers a couple of years ago. And the limerick goes, whenever they need Pat Venditti, his left arm and right arm are ready. He brings the team extras because he's ambidextrous. With which hand does he eat spaghetti? And before we get started here, and before I introduce Chris Young to you, I do want to comment on the passing of Hank Aaron today. It's been a really rough week. Don Sutton passed away 2 days ago. Hank Aaron today. Both of them boyhood heroes of mine. I used to send letters to my favorite baseball players when I was a kid, and I would actually tell them that I had the same birthday as they did, because it worked. The first time I did it, a guy named Bob Bruce was the only guy in the major leagues who had my birthday. He's actually from Dallas, as I found out later. And he sent me a card signed and a bunch of other stuff. I said, well, these guys don't know when my birthday is, so I'll try it with other guys. So I sent to a lot of players, and Hank Aaron and Don Sutton were both guys who sent back autographed photos. I saw Hank Aaron play in my very first game at Ebbets Field in 1957. I was 6 years old, and he hit 2 home runs. And I remember asking my dad, how can that skinny guy, he was really skinny back then, he was 23 years old, how can he hit the ball that far? And my dad said, well, it's all about the wrists. And I was just learning to play baseball then, and it had a huge impact on me. So Hank Aaron was always one of my favorite players, an incredible gentleman, an activist in the civil rights movement, and it's a rough day for all of us to lose Hank Aaron. But moving to our topic today, the Rangers, and our guest Chris Young, who of course is a son of Highland Park, the newest Ranger general manager, hired about a month ago. Chris played for the Rangers, although he actually was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates out of Princeton, where he played both basketball and baseball, was the Ivy League Rookie of the Year in both sports and all Ivy in both sports. Pittsburgh traded him to Montreal before he got to the big leagues and made his major league debut with the Rangers. I was fortunate enough to be here back then. I remember Chris winning his first game against the Red Sox. And then after a couple of years, the Rangers made one of their worst trades ever, trading Chris and Adrian Gonzalez, who had a spectacular career, to the San Diego Padres. Chris went on to pitch 13 years in the major leagues. He won the Comeback Player of the Year award in 2014, and in 2015 he was part of the Royals World Championship team, starting Game 4, winning in relief an extra inning game in Game 1, and then after his career went to work for Major League Baseball as a director of on-field operations and vice president, and we are so fortunate that we were able to pry him away. And Chris, I was just thinking, I believe that you and I spoke to the Park Cities Rotary at Maggiano's either in 2004 or 2005. Could I be right on that? Is that possible?
No, Eric, I think you are right. That brings back a very vague memory, but yes, I think you're right, and I remember at Maggiano's.
When you were growing up in Highland Park, were you thinking about being a Major League Baseball player or an NBA basketball player? My entire life, I've never been able to choose which sport I love more. I say baseball sort of chose me, but as a kid, my dream was just to be a professional athlete of any kind, and I was fortunate enough to play through 2 years of college, and then baseball did choose me, and the rest is sort of, as you described, history, and was able to live out my dream, and it's been everything I could have asked and beyond some. And as you were getting later in your career, thinking about what you would do afterwards, did the thought of being a team's general manager occur to you?
I don't know specifically about the role of general manager, but I did think that the longer I played, I came to the conclusion that baseball is kind of all I know at this point, and where my greatest expertise lies. And I felt like it would be a natural fit to stay in the game. I didn't know in which capacity, but as I kind of retired from the playing field and moved into the central office in New York with Major League Baseball and got the experience there, I think it became more appealing for me to eventually land back with the club. And I said this in my introductory press conference. In my heart, I'm a competitor. The idea of winning championships has great appeal to me, and I think that's led me back right where I belong.
So here you are, joining a club that's in some sort of a transitional phase. What's the biggest challenge for you?
Well, I think that For me, it's an exciting time. I think that where we are right now, it's really exciting. It's a chance to kind of reset and build a culture and build for the years to come. And I think it's something that the Rangers weren't quite able to do the last couple seasons, and you know, they fell behind in the standings. We're at a point now where we can really kind of reset things and build a culture, identify the right players, and shape it. We've got a lot of flexibility in doing that. We've got a lot of young talent on the way, and it's very exciting for me to come in at this phase and kind of help build it and see it grow. And I have high expectations of what's to come, of what we can accomplish. I've lived it. I know that when you put the right group of players together who have great talent, that great things can happen. And I'm pretty excited to be a part of it. I'm excited where we're headed. Now, there's going to be a lot of hard work. I recognize that. But if there wasn't hard work, it wouldn't be fun.
You're joining the team that you rooted for as a kid, and you already have relationships with John Daniels, who's your boss, and with Chris Woodward, the manager.
Yeah, so you know, you referenced it in the intro that JD and I go way back to 04, 05, and so we've maintained a friendship throughout the years. And then Chris Woodward and I played against each other as players in the big leagues. And then when Chris retired and got into coaching, he was on the staff in Seattle in 2014, and I was a pitcher on the Seattle Mariners at the time. So at that point in my career, I was one of the older veteran players. Chris was a younger, newly retired player. We're very close in age. And in fact, I was kind of closer to the coaches in age more than the younger players. So naturally gravitated. We became close friends. And so, you know, between JD and Woody, yes, I'm very close with both. I have great respect for both people. They're both great leaders. And I feel like we have the right team, the right leadership team to make this work.
As you were working in the commissioner's office, how close were you following the Rangers? Did you know more about the Rangers than you did about other clubs?
You know, really, no. I think that I grew up a Ranger fan, obviously played for the Rangers for a period of time, but then my allegiance kind of drifted to the teams I played for, and then in the commissioner's office, you can't play favorites. So, you know, my kids were allowed to have a favorite team. We still lived in the Metroplex, so they were Ranger fans, but for me, you know, tried to stay neutral, but I think that was part of the appealing aspect of the commissioner's office, is I was able to get a glimpse into all 30 organizations, get to know from the owners down to the field level, the coaching staff, and everybody in between, and see how some of these organizations operate. And for me, it was a great experience. And so while I didn't have a favorite team, I followed all teams pretty closely.
We're going to get to your questions in just a second, but I do want to address the whole COVID situation. This is obviously a very big challenge. Spring training begins in just a few weeks, less than a month now, and trying to keep everybody safe, trying to get the season to start on time so we can play a full season this year. How do you see that challenge?
You know, I think this last season was unlike anything we've ever experienced in Major League Baseball history. There were unprecedented challenges. There was no real blueprint. And I think that the league, the players, the coaches, everybody who was a part of it handled it beautifully. It wasn't ideal, but I think everybody did their best to get through it. And look, I think we're at a point now where there's a light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccination. That said, we're not there yet. And we still have to take great precaution. The virus is still in control. It's very real. And we need to keep that in mind and stay very vigilant with our protocols, our safety protocols that Major League Baseball put in place for the season, and do our best to try to, until we have everyone vaccinated and achieve herd immunity, that we're as careful as can be.
You know, I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but last year the announcers did not travel with the team as we normally do. We did the road games off TV monitors in our home booth at Globe Life Field, and apparently we're going to start the season this year doing it the same way, which is one of the biggest challenges that I've ever had as a broadcaster. And we're going to start it again that way, hoping that by the second half of the season we can maybe travel with the team. There are going to be fans at the games when the season starts, unless something changes. It'll be a limited capacity. The Ranger schedule is out, of course. We're not yet selling individual game tickets, but we are selling group tickets. A group is just 10 or more now. We're also selling suite tickets for individual games, and of course season tickets and partial season tickets. So you can look at the schedule and make plans along those lines, at least for now. We want to get to some of your questions, so Eric, what do we got here?
All right, thank you, Eric. From Sean Foster, we'll start off with him. Chris, this is for you. After a successful run with the Rangers, how did you deal with the rejection of being traded by the fairly new and young general manager John Daniels? And if I may say, Daniels later said he was new to Dallas and didn't know how many fans you had until after the trade. And what is it like returning?
That's a great question. And so, fortunately, that was not my first time being traded. I was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, traded to the Montreal Expos, and then traded to the Texas Rangers. And so I'd been through 2 previous trades, so that was the 3rd time to get traded. And I learned, probably the first one from Pittsburgh to Montreal was the toughest. I did feel a sense of rejection. And then I learned in my subsequent trades that every trade led to an opportunity, and that's how I viewed it. And so going from Texas to San Diego, while I was, so disappointed to leave the Rangers, the team I grew up rooting for, it was this new opportunity to go out west to play for a winning team. We won the division the next year, to be around really, really good veteran players that had a major impact on my career as a young player. And from a personal standpoint too, I was a newlywed at the time. It was my wife and I kind of set out on our own. We had our own experience out in San Diego. We have wonderful memories out there. We have great friends that we still maintain relationships with, and I'm very thankful for it. But yes, as an athlete and a competitor, there is a sense of sort of disappointment or rejection, but you quickly get past it, you move on, you understand it's part of the business. And in terms of the second half of the question, how's it feel to be home? I couldn't be more excited. Really, I feel like when this opportunity came about, I loved my role with Major League Baseball, but this was an opportunity I felt like that in terms of helping the Texas Rangers win a World Series, I don't think there's anything professionally that would be more fulfilling for me. I know how much our fans want a World Series champion, and I'm determined to help get us there, and I'm confident we will.
I want to jump in here for a second on the subject of trades. Have you had the opportunity, I don't know if that's the right word, the experience yet of telling a player that he's been traded now that you're the general manager?
No, not yet. I've welcomed new players thus far, but some of the moves, the offseason moves that we've done, happened right at the outset of me being hired this offseason, and so JD kind of took the lead in informing the players with whom he had previous existing relationships. It was very important for him to reach out to those players. But yes, Eric, that's an important part of the job, and I think that's for me a very important aspect in that. Our players are people, and we need to make sure that we respect their feelings and we communicate well with them, and that we treat them like people and not commodities. And this is a business where there are a lot of moves made, and sometimes you feel like you're lost in the shuffle. You don't matter. That's not how I want Texas Rangers to feel. This is a great organization with great people, and we will always value our people.
All right, thank you. And this question also comes from Sean Foster, and being a Highland Park graduate, Highland Park kids and many other schools, they face enormous peer pressure on a variety of fronts. What advice would you give to freshman students at Highland Park or other schools to help them get the most out of it?
Oh, that's a great question. And yes, they're whether Highland Park or anywhere, there are kids in this day and age, certainly right now in this pandemic, there are a lot of pressures that we never had to deal with. And certainly, I don't feel far removed from high school, but I am. And now I have kids that are, closely approaching that age. And my daughter's in middle school, so I recognize this, and it is real. The best advice I can give any child, any kid, high school or below, is to make good decisions. The more good decisions you make in life, the better opportunities you will have. Just make good decisions. Still be a kid, enjoy yourself. Know that you never get your high school years back, so enjoy, have fun, but make good decisions, because once you set out on a path and you veer from making too many good decisions, it's hard to get back. So that's the best advice I can give.
Well, I'm going to make both my sons watch this when they get home from school today. That's great. It's better coming from you than from me.
Well, you can speak to my kids.
Okay, we'll trade off. Okay, this question's actually for my son, who's 11 years old, played baseball since he was 3. Who inspired you to play baseball?
You know, the first was my dad. I have great memories of a kid, going to the park and playing with my dad, and then now living that as a father with my own children and having that experience. Certainly, my dad was my initial inspiration and introduction into the game. And then, as any kid does, you have role models that you look up to, and certainly Nolan Ryan was one of my biggest. When he came to the Rangers in 1989, what he meant for the franchise, that was sort of the prime of my childhood. I was 10 years old, and I was just glued. Every day Nolan Ryan pitched, I had to watch. I begged my parents to take me to the game. We'd sit out in the upper deck of the bleachers, and I just have great memories. And then now, as a professional player, having the opportunity to have met him on occasion and just talk pitching with him was like a dream come true. So, but certainly, my dad initially, and then Nolan into my childhood, and then also as a player, also getting to play alongside guys that I really looked up to him. And Greg Maddux had an unbelievable impact on my career. We were teammates for 2 years in San Diego, and I learned more about pitching from Greg, probably as much from Greg as any pitching coach I ever had. And so, it's one of the beauties of being a professional athlete is you get to meet your heroes at times, and just these wonderful experiences and memories certainly shaped who I was as a player.
Now, if I remember right, you were a catcher growing up. Was Jim Sundberg a guy who you were looking up to back then?
Yes, and then Pudge a little bit too. And it was, early in Pudge's career was about the time I shifted to pitching. I kind of outgrew catching, Eric, so they moved me to the mound. But that was right when I was around 12 years old. And but yes, Jim, and then got the opportunity to work with Jim in 04 and 05 when I was with the Rangers. Great man.
Brings back some great names there. Thank you. Eric, this one's for you. From Eric Harrison and our club. From the first season of Rangers baseball, I listened to the late, great Mark Holtz alongside you broadcasting games. Hello, win column. Could you share a favorite memory or story about Mark that most people wouldn't know?
All right. Absolutely. I think most people have forgotten or didn't know that Mark was actually the original radio voice of the Mavericks. Mark was doing baseball in Denver for the Denver Bears AAA club of the Montreal Expos, and he interviewed for the Rangers job when John Miller left in 1980. I was already on board as kind of an apprentice announcer, if you will, at that time, almost an intern. And Mark didn't get the job. A guy named Mel Proctor got the job. Mark was the runner-up, but I got to meet him. And we went to lunch a couple of times. It was a really extensive interview process. He was here for a couple of days, and we became really good friends. So then, when he did the Mavericks for a year, the Rangers had changed broadcasting directors, and the new one absolutely had to have Mark. And he literally hired him away from the Mavericks after the first year of the Mavericks. And then we had a 13-year run together before Mark decided to shift over to TV. When we started doing games together, only about 50 games were on television. The radio broadcast was how most people followed the games. Once we got to a point where more and more games were on TV, Mark felt that as the voice of the Rangers, he really wanted to be on TV. And we had so much fun together. We laughed. The first year we did games, 1982, was the first year that the radio station, it was WBAP in those days, decided they wanted to do every spring training game. I think we missed 3 games because they had a conflict with Mavericks regular season games. But we drove all over Florida that spring. We went from Pompano Beach up to Daytona. We went across to Tampa and Clearwater. It seemed like we were in the car all the time. And we got to be really good friends. And we laughed so much. He was one of these guys. He was always in a good mood. I've known very few people like this. He was a jolly guy. And it came across on the air, and I think it's one of the reasons that that people loved him so much, and one of the reasons that Hello Win column and It's Baseball Time in Texas, have become part of the Rangers vernacular. And he certainly would have been in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I still think he's got a chance at some point. We're hoping to get them to relax the rules so we can have a posthumous induction of a lot of great announcers like Mark, who left us too soon. But those are just unbelievable memories, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
We thank you for sharing those and a little bit of a history lesson there, too. Thank you. All right, this comes from Fred Brown in our club. Is Elvis Andrews definitely out as a starting shortstop this season?
Well, look, that's a tough decision. Certainly, we've committed to playing Isaiah Kiner-Falefa at short this year, and I think that Isaiah's earned it, and I think that that's really important. That moving forward, that we're going to be a culture where it's performance-based, and Elvis has meant a ton to the Texas Rangers. He's still a very important part of our team. We envision him playing a lot of third base this year, and we're hopeful that he'll come in and be the player that we think he can be. But certainly, part of us growing and getting better is you have to make decisions like this, and it's a tough one given that everything Elvis has meant in terms of playing shortstop for the Texas Rangers. But there have been other great shortstops who've had to move off short as well before him, and Michael Young is one who comes to mind, and he did a great job, still was a great player, and that's our expectation for Elvis.
Okay, thank you.
With Elvis moving, he's in the mix at third base. How do you view the third base situation now, which is kind of a vacant position?
Yeah, I think that it's probably right now Elvis has a leg up there. I think that it's his for the time being. I think that certainly we'll see how it goes, and it's going to be performance-based, but there's opportunity to come and compete. I think that, and that's a lot of places on our roster right now, and I think that's the beauty of having a young team is there are a lot of open positions, there's a lot of opportunity, and it's going to be performance-driven. So, we'll see what happens. I think that we'll still continue to monitor the market and see what happens the rest of the offseason. It has been slow to this point, but anything can happen right now. But we certainly have high expectations for Elvis. We think he can be a very good third baseman if he comes in and wins the job.
If I'm not mistaken, this is the first time Elvis has had to win a job in spring training, because even when he came up from the minors from AA Frisco in 2009, he was basically given the job in the off season. He didn't have the situation of going to spring training and winning a job. So it's going to be, for me, one of the most interesting things to see in spring training this year.
And look, I'll add a little color to that as a former player who's been through it. I know what that's like, to some degree, having to come into camp and win a job. And I think that as a player, it's at certain points in your career really good for you. It re-energizes you, it motivates you, and you remember how fun the game is and how much you love it. And so you don't take it for granted. You want to jump back in. And I think that's what Elvis is. He's a great love, great passion for the game. He's a great player, and I think he'll do great with it.
That reminds me of some comments I heard a while back about how some players they love the game. It's so much fun. You go through high school, you go through college, grade school, all that, and then you get to the pros, and now it's a business. And how do you get past that mentally to where you keep yourself motivated and going on, and you're kind of competing against the guy that's sitting next to you?
Yeah, that's a really, really tough aspect of being a professional athlete, is that it is a business, it's performance-driven, and you can never relax. You can never become complacent. And, and there's certain things that are beyond your control at times where either your body ages or you have injuries, there's setbacks, and you can't perform quite at the same skill level. And so you have to kind of reassess, you have to change some things and, reinvent yourself to some extent. I certainly had to do it as a player, and I think it's someone who sustains a long career is able to do. And really, Eric, you've seen it with tons of players over the course of their career. I mean, Kenny Rogers is one that comes to mind from what he was as a young pitcher to who he became as a veteran, someone I watched as a kid to then being a teammate with and learning from. The best players find a way to adapt and figure it out. Okay, now this is an interesting question about baseball cards. So the question is from Elaine Allen in our club, and her and her husband were long-time season ticket holders, loved the game growing up. Her kids played baseball. Are baseball cards a lost art, or do you see it coming back?
I don't know that it ever left. Not having kids, I'm probably not in touch with it as closely as you might be, Chris, and other people. But it seems there are more and more options in the card category than there have ever been.
Yeah, Eric, I know I collected a lot as a kid, and certainly throughout my career saw a lot of baseball cards, and so I didn't know really if it ever went away or if it just wasn't as popular, but my kids are into baseball cards, so I would, based on their interest, I would suggest that it's coming back, and I think it's great. I think it's a great way for kids to follow the game, to learn players, and connect with the sport.
Okay, thank you. All right, and one more question we've got one more question here, unless we've got some on the screen, and this regards to COVID. And you may have answered this, but from Tracy Gomes in our club, assuming we start the year under similar COVID restrictions, how are the Rangers looking to better position the club with the COVID? And you might have answered a little bit of that earlier.
Yeah. So I think that Major League Baseball did a great job last year rolling out a very restrictive safety protocol for the clubs. There were a couple hiccups along the way, and it was something that, again, there was no blueprint. And last year I was on the other end of this at the league trying to help write these protocols, and then now I'm on the team side trying to help apply them. And I just can't speak highly enough of all the clubs and what they did, the players' commitment to following the protocols, the coaches, the training staffs, the medical training staffs for the clubs had an immense job of trying to make this work, and they did a tremendous job. And I think that this year we learned a lot from last year. Certainly we're at a point with a virus that is probably worse than any point we played in last season, and the hope is that we can continue to have to follow those protocols and take as much precaution as possible to give us the best chance to have a season without missing time.
For those who don't know, baseball was not played in a bubble the way that basketball and hockey were last year. The teams traveled, and that's, of course, the plan for this year, too. So the rules that the players have to follow when they're on the road, are they established by Major League Baseball, or does each team set its own rules to make sure everybody stays safe?
It was both, Eric. So Major League Baseball had a set of guidelines, a set of rules for really home and road, and then each club had their own code of conduct within the club, and it varied club to club, and some clubs were more restrictive, others were a little less. And in the end, we felt like it was a competitive advantage to the clubs that could best follow the protocols. The clubs that, the healthier you stayed, the better chance you had of winning and keeping your best players on the field. And so, these athletes are highly competitive. They want to win, and they did a great job following the protocols and taking great precaution.
So when they're on the road, are they supposed to just stay in the hotel?
Yes, yeah. I mean, and that was probably in the league. A lot of the feedback we got from clubs is that players and staff felt very isolated last year because they were restricted in where they could go. They weren't allowed to leave the hotel. If they did leave the hotel, they had to have permission to do so. It was vastly different than what a normal experience is as a player or a coach. And look, it was necessary to play, and I think everybody was willing to make that sacrifice, but it was certainly not the norm.
And when they're at home, are they supposed to just stay in the house, or can they go to the grocery store? Can they go to their kids' Little League game, whatever they might normally do?
Yeah, it's the same thing at home. I mean, you were really supposed to keep as much distance from what they considered community spread, community risk, and do your best to avoid, but recognizing that players have families, and families are a very important aspect of any player or staff member, and that you tried to balance that when you're home. Just again, take precaution and wear masks and wash your hands and physically distance. Try not to go out in the community too much, and do your best to try to, because it's not just about you, it's about the health and safety of all your teammates and coworkers. And there are areas of a clubhouse that you can't avoid the physical distancing, that you're going to come into contact playing the game, and the more precaution you can take elsewhere, the safer everyone is collectively.
We noticed last year there were players who wore masks on the field, and there were players who didn't. Was that just an individual decision?
Yeah, that was an individual decision. It was not a requirement to wear a mask while playing the game. We felt like it was very restrictive. These are athletes that have to perform. They have to exert themselves. They breathe heavily. It would just inhibit their ability to do their jobs. And very frankly, I think there were 0 cases of on-field transmission last year. So I think that by and large, baseball is a sport that can be played safely. We did take, again, a lot of precautions precaution to make sure that we protected everyone, but there were no cases on field.
That's incredible. Okay, this just handed to me. A few questions here. Which teams are the Rangers' toughest competition?
Well, Eric, you want to answer that? You've seen the division the last few years. You have more expertise here.
It's a rough division. Oakland is a team that everybody seems to underestimate every year, and then when the season's over, they've won more than 95 games. They've lost some people in the offseason, and people are tending to count them out, I think, as they analyze the division, but that always seems to be the wrong thing to do. The Astros are still good. They've lost some players, but this might be the last year of their real competitive window. A team that's improved a lot this offseason is the Angels. They've probably made the most dramatic improvements, and Seattle has a very good young team. Their farm system has been loaded. They have added some players. They're probably in a position where they could be contenders this year, certainly the following season. So, there are no soft touches, in our division. But I think going into the season this year, it's going to be a more wide open division, at least in the way the so-called experts predict it, than it's been for several years.
I would echo everything Eric said. I think that it's a very good division. The Angels have upgraded. Astros, obviously, what they have done over the last few seasons. Oakland is tremendous. They have done an unbelievable job. You never underestimate that group. Their leadership team, the top, their manager, Bob Melvin, they are tremendous, and the players, what they are able to do year in, year out is awesome. Seattle is up and coming. And, I'll say the former player in me will answer the question with, it's the major leagues. They're all good, and if you have to be at your best to beat them all. It doesn't matter who you're playing.
Okay, how is designation of a starter or relief pitcher made? How's the designation?
It's something that sort of evolves. I think that most players come into the minor leagues as with the idea of being starters, or if they are a reliever, it's because a certain skill set sort of lends that way. And over time, you've seen. I've had teammates who were relievers through the minor leagues who all of a sudden jumped to the big leagues and they became starting pitchers, and vice versa. Starting pitchers through the minor leagues who got to the big leagues and were very good relief pitchers. So it's something that I think that we're in a day and age in the game where you're seeing so much versatility. You're seeing a lot of players who can play a lot of different positions. We're seeing pitchers who can start, who can relieve, who can open, who can close. There are no set roles, so to speak. And I think that it's really, as an organization, trying to identify the player, understand what they do well, and put them in the best position to succeed. But in terms of specific designations and how that happens, I think it just happens over time, over the course of their career. You kind of really figure out where their skill set and their mentality is best suited.
The starting pitcher isn't expected to go as deep into the game as he used to be, even when you came to the big leagues. Does that affect how you try and develop the pitchers in the minor leagues? It used to be you want your starter to be able to go at least 7 innings.
Yeah, Eric, I think that's something we've seen the game evolve in the last probably decade. That starting pitching has definitely, the length of the starting pitching in the game has diminished. And I think that certainly it's something we are paying attention to and identifying personnel that can both pitch deep into a game, but also, if they can't, is there a way to maximize their performance in shorter increments and pair them with another player who may not be collectively, they may not be able to go 7 innings, or individually may not be able to go 7 innings, but collectively they can combine for 7. So there are different ways to look at it, and it's part of the evolution of baseball right now.
So this was brought to us, being under 65, how soon can the players get the COVID vaccine?
That's a great question. That's something I do not know the answer to. We're waiting for guidance from Major League Baseball on that. I think that the league has been very adamant about waiting their turn, not skipping the line, and making sure that the frontline workers, high-risk individuals are vaccinated first. So I don't know the answer to that. It's something that we discuss daily in the office, and it will impact certainly our planning. And our hope is that with the vaccination rollout, it will happen sooner rather than later, but that's true for everybody right now.
And eventually, will players be required to get vaccinated, or is that not something that can be done unless the players' union is willing to agree to that.
Yeah, Eric, I don't know the answer to that. I know that that is something that will involve the collective bargaining agreement with the Players Association, and I do not know the answer, but that's another question that we are waiting for guidance.
All right. Will the season start on time?
As of now, that's what we've been told, yes. I think that there are a lot of circumstances that could change that. And obviously, as I said at the beginning, the virus is still in control. But our expectation is that we are headed to spring training mid-February, and we will plan to start on time. So until we hear otherwise, that's the plan. Our players are preparing accordingly. Our staff is getting ready, and we're starting to pack the bags to head to Surprise.
Are the teams bringing all of the minor leaguers to spring training the way they normally do?
That is not likely to happen. I think that minor league spring training will be delayed. There's obviously an element of the minor leagues that you do need to have a major league spring training. You need your depth. You need some level of backup players. So AAA spring training will likely be combined with major league spring training, and the two will start on time. I do not anticipate minor league spring training starting until that has concluded, but the timing of that, I have no idea.
All right, we have one more question. I have not seen this movie. How accurate is the movie Moneyball?
I have seen the movie, and you know, I didn't live in the Oakland A's front office at the time, but I think with anything that Hollywood does, there's probably elements that have been sensationalized. But one of the Jonah Hill character was played. After it was written after one of someone who has been a good friend of mine, Paul DePodesta, who was kind of the brains behind Moneyball, and you know, I know how smart Paul is, and sort of his outlook and way of looking at the game, and what they were able to do, and so. But there's no doubt, you cannot deny the impact that that has had on the industry and the way it has influenced decision making from that moment on. And certainly the Oakland A's were leaders at that point, and they continue to be.
I think that, you know, it was exaggerated in some ways, as, you know, Hollywood does, particularly for me, the role of Art Howe. Art Howe is a really nice guy. He's not an old curmudgeon who's, you know, refusing to let anything change. They had to make him look like that to make it work in the movie. That was the part of the movie probably that bothered me, because I've known Art for a really long time. When he retired as a player, he became a coach with the Rangers under Bobby Valentine. And, you know, he may have been more of a traditional baseball guy, but they made it a little too extreme for me.
All right, thank you. We're going to end with a hometown question here. Any chance of bringing Kershaw back to Dallas?
Well, look, Clayton is under contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers, but Clayton's a good friend, and certainly he's had a wonderful career. We'll visit that when, you know, if and when Clayton ever becomes a free agent, but until then, it would be inappropriate to comment.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. I want to thank you all for being here today. It's always one of our most exciting programs of the year. You guys are welcome back anytime. We owe you lunch when Maggiano's gets cranking back up again. And I want to give a special thanks to Player Relations Ashley Quintiloni for helping us out and bringing this program together today. And so we will be placing a book in your honor for being here today in the Preston Hollow Elementary School. And we thank you guys for being here.
Thank you. Great to be here always.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
All right, and best of luck this season.
Thank you.
So we'd like to end on the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Ring that bell.
Never got to ring the bell before.
That's pretty cool.
A Rotarian here.
That's good.
That was
Awesome, that was-
outstanding.
Awesome.
That's fun.
That's like so interesting, all that.
So, just